Gathering Dan Bongino and foaming Nick Fuentes are the same. Deep state assets. The only difference is target audience. One is aimed at the out-of-touch old. The other, the easily influenced young. Dan Bongino recently left his FBI post to return to podcasting, promoting his return via another Fox fake news blowhard, Hannity. While Sean pumped up Dan's supposed coming revelations of his FBI time, nothing will come of it. Just as Bongino did nothing before and during his FBI tenure. He will do nothing now or later because his soul belongs to the deep state. Nick Fuentes is the new outrageous conservative figure of Gen Z, the Hannity of the young. Recently, he opined that Epstein was really not a pedophile because his island-brought girls were really barely underage. This is a lie. There were twins of 12, and the youngest was 8. Doubling down, Fuentes is now selling an Epstein hoodie, the emblematic wardrobe of youth, with the colors on one shoulder, as on a soldier's shoulder sleeve. The psyop couldn't be clearer, just as with Bongino. Forget Epstein, or better yet, accept him. That is the cool and American thing to do. Ignore the fact that the United States and Israeli governments paid for and encouraged the rape of children so as to blackmail and extort world leaders. Bongino and Fuentes are widely separated by age, profession, and experience, yet they are the same and in thrall to the same master. The deep state double government, the modern Praetorian Guard, that puppets those supposed to represent us, and they reveal the hard truth of the United States of America Corporation. The deep state does not serve, it enslaves. And the captured American government works not for the people, but for itself, their elite. No one any longer cries for the FBI to investigate anything, except for Alex Jones, who now appears to have sold out. No one expects the Clintons to face any consequences for ignoring congressional subpoenas. No one expects AG Bondi to indict anybody anymore. No one is waiting for the FDA or the CDC to actually promote the public good anymore. When the next attack occurs, everyone knows the CIA will have missed it, since it will have been in on it. No one expects justice from our courts. Rather, the opposite is now standard. America's government is inverted completely. The G has entered systemic obsolescence. Systemic obsolescence is the decline in utility or relevance of an infrastructure or model due to shifts in societal values. The satanically sourced deep state uniparty has, over the past 70 years, completely flipped the script on American values. All that was good is now labeled bad. The bad guys are now the good guys. 1948 is late, but it has arrived. But they rule by deception, the only way they can. And the deception is failing. The out-of-touch elderly are still tuning into Fox and Bongino, but the audience age average is 70, and that is not sustainable. Nick Fuentes' Gen Z audience has been abandoning the ship left and right as they heard about his denial of Epstein as a pedophile backstopped by federal government and Mossad. You recall, Fuentes advocated going into the Capitol on January 6th and ignoring the police. He is a young version of Ray Epps. Most are now recognizing the American government's systemic obsolescence, yet they have yet to verbalize it as I have here. But their actions have already acknowledged it. Further, they are killing their most ardent followers off. The bioweapon jab and subsequent turbo cancers and diseases have reduced their numbers by millions. The mother murderers of the unborn ensures they will have no future generations. Their drug use has dropped hundreds of thousands, and their predilection for incel and homosexual recruitment and promotion continues to cull their shrinking herd. The very few cannot control the very many. That is why democide is so widely in vogue now. Reduce the many to controllable numbers by the very few. So the very few elite are getting fewer, and the very few many, and the very many are waking up. They are the house. The government is the house, and the house always wins. So get out of the house. Stop playing their game. Fight your fight on your terms, on your terrain, on your time frame, by your rules. Authentic, organic, fourth-generation resistance is irresistible because they are beatable. They can be defeated. They are neither giants nor geniuses, just failures with father wounds. Literally, all of them. Tyrants always fall. Tyranny invariably fails. Indeed, we are watching them fail daily. Pray for guidance, then listen and look for it. When it shows, follow it. If you don't know how to pray, learn with us at christchaplaincy.com. Get out of the city. The cities are already gone. They are disease and death centers, battlegrounds with quadrants run by drug traffickers and rival illegal gangs doing daily battle with federal agents and the military. And this is the new norm. Relocate to a small farming town or community that can feed itself, where everyone knows each other and guns are commonplace. Integrate yourself by becoming a valuable community resource. Start a garden, get some chickens in stock, and learn to feed yourself and your neighbors. Our goat milk has become quite the rage in my neighbor, and our neighbors provide better beef than any store. When our house burned, our neighbors showed up unbidden, neighbors I'd never even met. But we had become good neighbors already by proactively helping and being personally involved in the locals' lives, institutions, and churches. Turns out, when you love your neighbor as yourself, your neighbors love you back. The government is the house, and the house always wins, so get out of the house. Tyranny always fails. Tyrants always fall. Find your passion, pursue it, become excellent at it, and the people will pay you for it. The Army once paid my way to Hawaii to train 250 soldiers in my close-quarter combative system for a single day. But the trip was for a week with a dedicated ride and driver and 2 assistant instructors. You can see that at jeffreyprather.com, close quarter combat in the shop. I had trained various deploying elements of the 115th Military Intelligence Battalion in my 5-day pre-deployment courses at my warriorschool.com tactical company, and they have been very pleased because they all came home alive. Don't be dependent upon government stipends. What the G takes, what the G gives, the G takes. I was a DEA special agent. While I was a DEA special agent, I was also a paid Army reservist. I had a martial arts business, a firearms business. I was a published author and writer, and I did seminars. Not one of these were big incomes, but redundancy begets resiliency. I did what I loved, met wonderful folks who became lifelong friends while doing it, and it paid a bit. Finally, for the bold and truly committed, opt out of the United States corporation you were illegally trapped into at birth and various other stages of life by becoming an American state national. The republic is falling, and the empire is failing. I'm still doing my utmost to rescue the republic via the Prather Point and Team America, which is at jeffreyprather.com. But many are pathetic and lack commitment to stay the course, any course. But I am doing my best to ensure my children have a country to grow up in. It may not be ideal, but it will be the best I can give them. And I know they will make it and make everyone they touch better. Ex-DEA and DIA, retired SOCOM soldier, deep state targeted, whistleblower warrior, betrayed and saved, rejecting revenge, as teacher and truth teller, now America's intelligence officer, resisting tyranny in obedience to God, welcoming like-minded patriots, training next generations to infill corrupted agencies and St. Martin them inside out, bottom up, co-opting conquerors in Christ. Welcome. I'm Jeff Prather, and this is the Prather Point. Hey, welcome everybody. Lots to cover. Not seeing a lot of folks out there, well, on Rumble, not on X, looks like. See some X comments there. Let me see here. Public service announcement, never carry a SIG 220, let alone chambered and ready to fire. That's from Earl Jackson. So I'm going to get into all that here in a moment. But this show is the special Minnesota is the real insurrection. And then I'll get into the 8th Circuit OK's ICE SOPs And is Trump's Insurrection Act next? Surviving America's Systemic Obsolescence. I just covered that. That's my new Substack. And the BP shoot, what we see isn't what they saw. That was actually my job, so I'll be talking about that. And then Nicholas HOLSHER will be along to talk about the Jeb's chemical lobotomy. First off, federal agents with the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, just secured a major win in the 8th Circuit in appeals when there was a full stay issued on a lower court's ruling that had limited how ICE officers could respond to protesters in the Twin City areas. And this is Operation Metro Surge. So 6 activists filed a lawsuit claiming federal authorities violated their rights during enforcement raids, which is crap. The 3-judge panel didn't buy the broad restrictions, noting that federal agents responded in various ways. And so Attorney General Pam Bondi has praised this ruling. But what this means is that the Superior Court has approved the way ICE is performing in Minnesota. So that's a really important legal precedent for what's going on. But of course, you can't ignore how these protests echo patterns from past resistance movements. This is very typical of Antifa under Pedo Joe. Remember, I was the guy who broke Antifa.com, goes to whitehouse.gov, the entire Pedo Joe administration. There's certainly dark money from global figures fueling all of this. Then there's the convenient timing for politicians and bureaucrats in Minneapolis, as fraud investigations were launched just days before. And now all of a sudden we have all these coordinated insurrectionists. And this is the real insurrection. And everybody's talking about this. And I picked this up real quick. Is Eric Schwalm is a former United States Special Forces Green Beret Chief Warrant Officer. The warrant officers are the backbones of the teams, very experienced. He's an expert in O&I, operations and intelligence. And he's clearly identified sophisticated insurgency structure in Minnesota. But not who? Well, I have. It's the cartels. Paramilitary and intelligence supporting Antifa and assorted communists, just as cartels supported and co-opted Sendero Luminoso, Shining Path, Maoist guerrillas in Peru in my day. Communists need funding too. So Schwalm posted on Sunday as a former Special Forces warrant officer with multiple rotations, running counterinsurgency ops, both hunting insurgents and trying to separate them from sympathetic populations. I've seen organized resistance up close from Anbar to Hemland, and the pattern is familiar. Spotters, cutouts, dead drops, disciplined comms, role specialization, a willingness to absorb casualties while bleeding the enemy force. What's unfolding in Minneapolis right now isn't a protest. It's a low-level insurgency infrastructure built by people who have clearly studied the playbook. Signal groups at 1,000 members per cap, dedicated roles, mobile chasers, plate checkers, logging vehicle data into shared databases, 24/7 dispatch nodes, vectoring assets. And some of these vectors are actually official. And I'll get to that in a second. Salute style, which is size, activity, location, unit time, equipment, standard report. When your own citizens build and operate this level of parallel intelligence and rapid response network against federal officers, complete with doxing, vehicle pursuits, and harassment that's already turned lethal, you're no longer dealing with a civil disobedience. You're facing a distributed resistance that's learned the lessons of successful insurgencies. This is an insurrection, not January 6th. And of course, nobody on January 6th was ever charged with insurrection. And they are learning to stay below the kinetic threshold most of the time, force overreaction when possible, which is what the lethal force encounters do. Maintain popular support through the narrative, which is what they are trying to do. And never present a single center of gravity, which is what they are doing. I spent years training partner forces to dismantle exactly this kind of apparatus. Now, pieces of it are standing in American cities and enabled by elements of local government, civil society that should keep every thinking American awake at night. And that is truly what is happening. Static on the microphone, maybe a loose connection. Okay, let me see what I can do about that. Plugging that back in. I moved it away. Okay, sounds better. I moved it away because last time it was too close, and it works really well. So these anti-ICE signal chats reveal that the Walz administration is implicated and there's foreign funding involved. And this came out from Cam Higbee, who infiltrated the Minnesota organization. The groups are highly sophisticated. They're set up geographically within the city of Minneapolis, generally divided by city council district, but also cover St. Paul, Bloomington, and other suburbs. They start a new signal chat every day and delete the prior day's chat. That's great OPSEC. They have a set of emojis that each user puts around their name when they're on shift to indicate the position that they're working the shift. This is very similar to what Team America does, is we do not use names, we use duties. And so if I'm ever questioned, although I would invoke my right of silence, but if I was ever questioned for whatever reason, then I would say, I don't know who they are. Why don't you know? Because I designed it that way. So no comms are secure, but they can be anonymous. And they're doing the same thing here. On Sunday, Data Republican published a spreadsheet of 4,000 donors to the effort and their possible identities. She also sent a non-redacted spreadsheet to the FBI. The FBI will do nothing about this because ICE and Border Patrol are arresting terrorists who have been infiltrated into America by the CIA, vetted by the FBI to sow and create more chaos so that the FBI has a domestic job to do. So, people sending stuff to the FBI still, it's not going to work. Send it to, in this case, it's not going to work either. The attorney generals have special agents in some of these states, but in this state is completely captured. But the first donation was from John Sapoltenick, a Canadian who helps run a crowdfunding site. But Minnesota State Representative Brad Tabaki coordinates the Scott County ICE Watch Signal chat. And this is him doing this directly. So this is an official participating in insurrection and interfering with federal officers, which is a felony under Title 18, Section 111, by the way. So these are all felons, and they are conspirators as well. But of course, we know the DOJ, AG, and FBI will do nothing. But this Representative Brad Tabaki is actually in on it. And Minnesota State Rep Alex Falconer is running the chats as well. But again, FBI or ICE is actually at war, not just with these Minnesota resistance movements, but with the cartels who are sponsoring them. The Somalis are not big drug traffickers, but they are human traffickers and they are arms traffickers. And remember, the deep state's dark economy is not just drugs, it's people and arms as well. So this is clear evidence that the insurrection is real. This is clearly prosecutable, but it won't happen. Not just because of the FBI and the DOJ's inaction, but it may be that Trump is waiting to build to climax for his Insurrection Act enactment, because there are certainly enough legal precedent from many previous presidents to do that as well. But the biggest name of the signal chat is Flan Southside, aka Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, a dispatch administrator on the Signals chat group as well. So, of course, that's a cover name. That's a false name, and it looks like the Lieutenant Governor is in on this as well. So, under this, does Trump's DOJ and FBI have enough to enact the Insurrection Act and bring in troops into Minnesota? Certainly. Now, will that happen? No, because I don't think he's going to get a good investigative report from the FBI and no charges from the AG as well. But from the building where the latest shooting has happened, the 2614 Nicolette, an 1,100 square building, is home to 184 businesses, which it's not that big of a building. So the New American Development Center, United Wellness Center, African American Family Services, Millennium Health Services, Bloom Home Health, Global Interpreting Innovations. What's all that? That's all the Somali fraud that's going on. And what you see all the time is when one address is used by multiple folks as drops. I saw this all the time. One P.O. box in Nogales, Arizona was used by 100, 200 different dopers. So that's exactly what's happening here. This is an investigative case made for the FBI, but nothing will be investigated because the FBI doesn't do complex criminal investigations anymore. They do simple entrapments and even simpler cover-ups. The chaos validates the need for the FBI, though, so they can get more money. And that is what will be happening. Got to see the numbers coming up on Rumble here. Let me take a quick look at what you guys are saying. How do we respond to these combined resources of business, military, and law enforcement? Okay, that's a great question. Let me answer that. The answer would be to bring in the National Guard Quick Reaction Force. And in this instance, because it is insurgency, there are National Guard Special Forces, Green Berets elements. That's exactly what should be brought in. And they could solve this. And of course, if the DOJ and FBI would do prosecutions as well, but that is really the answer. So you arrest. How do you get a corrupt government to turn on itself? Well, you don't. You arrest them. So again, they're really fighting the drug cartels and the international terrorists. That's who ICE is arresting. ICE isn't arresting the Mexican field worker or construction worker. ICE is going after hardened criminals here in all of this. And there is a Democratic state representative urging people to join a rapid response networks to hinder ICE. And this Democratic Colorado state representative, Yada Zocale, is even out of Colorado. So it's an interstate and international movement. This rapid response network in Minnesota is tracking the vehicles used by ICE, broadcasting their locations. And this is what independent journalist Cam Higbee exposed. Not Fox journalist, independent journalist, because Fox is fake news paid for by the deep state. So the fatal shootings of Preti and Renee Good occurred during confrontations involving rapid response to ICE operations. That is, the people that have been shot were all trained and part of active ICE resistance. And that is very important to understand. And again, who ICE is arresting is terrorists. Al-Fawadi, an illegal alien from Iraq, has a criminal history that includes charges for rape, criminal instruction. He's been convicted on charges of false statements. He had a deportation order in 22, but ICE arrested him in 2025. The illegal aliens include members of Al-Qaeda, ISIS, the Republican Guard Corps of Iran, MS-13. Another one is Chasib Hafid Sayedun Al-Fawadi, identified as a member of Iraqi Shia militant group as well. Another is Fares Abdul Al-Ayani, criminal alien from Yemen. Yemen is Al-Qaeda Arab Peninsula. That's the strongest Al-Qaeda group now. Majid Gorbayani serves in the Iranian military, was charged with acting as an unregistered agent of a foreign government. So that's who ICE is arresting. They're not going after Mexican workers by any means. And who is interfering? And so these are all terrorists, or these are all child traffickers, pedophiles. These are all drug traffickers. These are evil people. And who is defending them is this conglomeration of democratic socialists, which are Nazis. That's what that means, and communists, to cover up for their criminal fraudulent exercises as well. And so that's really important to understand. But I also want to go over, before I get to my guest here, the latest shooting of the ICU nurse. Again, the ICU nurse was a trained resistor. So when you approach a federal special agent, and I know this because I was one for 19 years, under Title 18, Section 111, you are interfering with his duty. You are committing a felony. So what's that mean as a felony? It means you are a potential felon when you're arrested. So I made hundreds, maybe thousands of arrests. They were all felony arrests. What does that mean? That means my gun, my handgun or my submachine gun or my AR was always out. I never made an arrest where my weapon wasn't out. So now we're seeing these guys make arrests without their weapons out, even though they are dealing with chargeable felons. If you're interfering with a federal agent's duty, you are a felon, period. Okay, so you are inserting yourself into an agent making their arrest. That's what you got to understand at first. And these guys are trained. Now this guy shows up with a SIG 320. The SIG 320 is the new darling of the military. He's got a holo sight on it. Looks like a closed type, the latest optic, a couple extra magazines. What's that mean? That means he's a trained shooter. But if you don't know, and I'm a big firearms guy, I've been a firearms instructor since 1993, DEA firearms instructor. I've got all kinds of credentials. The 320 is very problematic. It seems to discharge by itself. A lot of these turned out to be false statements where some Air Force guys actually fired them. But it does seem to be problematic that it can fire. Anyway, what happens is these guys, the Border Patrolman tries to, I think he's Border Patrol, pushes a woman back. The ICU nurse jumps in. They start struggling. People are commenting upon it's taken 7 or 8 guys to get one guy. You've obviously not tried to arrest a resistor because that's very common. It isn't the movies. Everybody at that point is on adrenaline, including the resistor. So everybody's a lot stronger than they would normally be. Then one of the agents disarms the nurse, and it looks like the slide may be back. And so what he did probably was is lock the slide back. In fact, we can talk about that. Is he probably locked the slide back like that, but he did not remove the magazine because he was under a lot of stress. So then as he walks away, either the 320, which has a tendency to do this, or he maybe lets the slide go forward, or maybe his hand goes in the trigger, and I've got a barrel block in here so nothing can fire. I've checked this ahead of time. Okay. And the SIG 220 discharges into the pavement. At that point, what has already happened is the agents were struggling with this guy. This guy's fighting. They knew he had a gun. When the agent sees the gun, he says, "Gun," alerting everybody on the pile, "Hey, there's got a gun." One agent is removing it. As he walks away, he either presses the trigger inadvertently, causing a negligent discharge, or the slide goes forward, or the SIG goes off on its own because that SIG type has been doing that. It discharges into the pavement. And then another agent who's already just drawn his firearm fires into the nurse, and everybody jumps back. And so people don't understand. And next week, I'm going to have Colonel Grossman on killing, the expert on the physiological and psychological phenomena that happened in a zero-sum confrontation on to talk about this. But it's not like on TV. And also what you're seeing the video is not what the participants see. A whole bunch of physical phenomena begin to happen. First of all, there's a startle response where you react. You might void yourself, pee yourself. On 9/11 and D-Day, people poop themselves. There's auditory exclusion. When your gun goes off, your ears blink. You don't hear your gun go off, but you hear your shell casing hit the ground. There's tachypsychia, fast mind, where everything looks like it's happening in slow motion. Sometimes everything is enlarged as well. There's also a lot of tunnel vision, which is how you see all the old Western movies, guys were shooting guns out of their hands. That actually happened because your body focuses on the threat, which is the gun. which puts your focus on the gun. So when these guys heard gun, they were probably they may have experienced tunnel vision. I'm not making excuses for them. I'm telling you what was likely happening. I'm telling you this was definitely not murder, because there's no premeditation. These guys did not get together ahead of time and say, we're going to murder this guy. There was a case a while back where some incompetent district attorney, because she was black, it was a DEI thing, charged 6 officers who were also black and Hispanic with throwing a kid with a bicycle, black kid with a bicycle in the back of a paddy wagon, and he broke his neck or something like that. Maybe somebody can tell me what that was in the chat. And she charged them all with murder. Well, that was stupid. It would never have worked, because those guys in the morning would have had to get together and say, hey, we're going to murder this bicyclist we're going to encounter. So manslaughter, yes. So is it a good shoot? No, it is not a good shoot, of course. But nobody wants to get shot. And it is not like you see in the movies. As a primary firearms instructor for the DEA, I had to watch hundreds of shooting tapes. And I actually went to court at times on this exact issue to use my subject matter expertise to explain what was actually happening in the shoot. I've talked about this before. So it's not a good shoot, but it's not murder and it's not execution. It is the fog of war with a bunch of bad things happening. And you also got to understand that there are a variety of levels of experience out there doing this. There's HSI, Homeland Security, criminal investigators have a 12-week training program. HSI special agents have a 13 to 15 week and got to have a college degree. I was a special agent. And a Border Patrol agent is not like a DEA special agent. Border Patrol agents don't have college degrees. But then what you also had out there was enforcement removal operations officers, EROs, and they only have 8 weeks, 47 days of training, and not a lot of experience. Now, if you're a cop, you go through the academy, whatever that is, 3-4 months, and then you're on probation for a year or two longer. So they're being thrown into a mix here. And, Border Patrol, for example, being hit with stuff, concrete milkshakes or something on the border. If you throw a rock at a Border Patrolman, they'll shoot you, because the difference between a bullet and a big rock is just trajectory and speed. And that's totally valid as well. So trying to explain this a little bit, this is not a good shoot. This is a bad shoot, but it is not murder. It is not execution. But also, when one guy fires, everybody fires, because they want to end the threat and they don't want to get shot. And that's exactly what you see. You see, as the agent walks away, you see the gun flare because it's going off. Then you see you see another agent react, and then you see the one agent fire, and then everybody else fires because they think because of their tunnel vision, hey, there's a dangerous threat, so they all shoot as they are moving back. And so you've got different levels there. It looks like 1801s. It doesn't look like there's any special agents there, but I'm not sure. But the point there is that there's various levels of training, and the enforcement removal guys, the ERO guys, don't have much training at all. And to be put in something like that is quite difficult. So I don't see any questions on that there. But I just did want to talk about that, and I'll try and get my friend, Colonel Dave Grossman, the author of On Killing and Killology, who has studied in depth and has the data and metrics on the physiological and psychological responses that happen in a zero-sum confrontation, in a lethal force confrontation, and all the phenomena. Another phenomenon that happens is hallucinations happen. Officers report that their partner was shot when they were, and they were even touching their partner. Hey, and he goes, "No, I wasn't shot. I saw you get shot." So what we saw in the video is not what the participants participating, experiencing with lethal force, all the phenomena saw at all. That's very, very important to understand. And Isn't it illegal to carry a firearm in a demonstration in that state? I don't know about that in Minnesota, but it is not like that idiot Patel said you can't bring a gun to a demonstration. Of course you can. There's a lot of times where everybody brings firearms to demonstrations. But when you interfere, when you arm yourself, and the reason you arm yourself is because you might have to use a gun. That's the whole. That's the whole reason to have. What's the reason to have a fire extinguisher? Because you might need it. What's the reason to have a gun? Because I might need to use it. Okay, so he brought the gun because he might need to use it, and everybody inherently understands that. The agents all understand that, but it's. I don't know if it's illegal in Minnesota, but generally speaking, it's not illegal. I think the Supreme Court just overturned constitutional carry anywhere. But any other questions on that? Put them in the chat there before I bring on my guest. But I did want to touch base on that. And again, this is to detract from the fraud that is going on in Minnesota, being conducted by the government. Oh yeah, and Earl Jackson, thanks for reminding me there. Yes, Rachel Sayre, the EMS chief in Minnesota, has a background in international humanitarian response in Yemen, Haiti, Syria, Iraq, and Ukraine, in USAID under Obama. Yeah, so what you've got is a CIA, because Obama was CIA, so what you've got is a CIA chick there running all of this. And this is just, again, like what happened to Ukraine. This is, again, just like what happened on January 6th as well. And because the FBI and CIA are in on it, you're not going to see the investigations that you should see there as well. And this is from a locals, because you can sign up at jeffreyprither.locals.com. Plasmagraphs as of 4 p.m. The open talk group for Hennepin County, Minnesota, has gone quiet, and this may be because Cam Higme's signal chat called them out. So they're going back to good security there. But I want to get to my special guest now today. And he has been on before. Of course, Dr. McCullough is an old friend. We've given speeches together. He's guested as well. But NICOLAS HOLSHER is part of the McCullough Foundation. And he was just talking. There's a lot of important things he was talking about. But one of them was the jabbed chemical lobotomy. And I've certainly noticed this through personal anecdotes of after the PSYOP and after people took the bioweapon, their personalities were changed. So that's one thing we're going to talk about, but he also wants to talk about the Nipah virus, lots of things. So NICOLAS, welcome back. Thanks for your patience there.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to, I emailed you, I guess you didn't see it, because I want to make something clear. And I don't want to ambush you because I don't do ambush stuff ever. But I saw some controversy about your stature as an epidemiologist, because I understand that it takes a master's in public health to have that. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, you're correct. It requires a master's in public health, preferably with a specialization in epidemiology. And that is exactly what I obtained. And you know, those trolls that say I'm not an epidemiologist, I guess they haven't looked at my, Google Scholar profile or ResearchGate profile. I've now, contributed to the publication of over 20 peer-reviewed studies since 2023, accruing an H-index of 7. And so, all the trolls out there, I don't know what their problem is, but I am contributing to the scientific record, unlike those trolls.
Thank you very much. And as I said, I just saw that. I didn't want to ambush you. I had emailed you so we could do this ahead of time, but I guess you didn't see it. But so I wanted to establish your credibility, because I had on Dr. Young, who actually went to jail for claiming to be a medical doctor. I think a lot of his stuff was still good, but he was claiming a title that he did not. That's all about that. So thank you for clearing that up. And they're just trying to obviously discredit you. So thanks for that. So what there's a variety of things that you've been talking about that are interesting to me. But because I think COVID was really about psyop, it was all about control, and the mask was an indicator of control. Just like when we dropped leaflets in the first Iraq War that said, "Put your gun over your head," and then we saw thousands of soldiers come out with their gun over their head. We could see how good it worked. The mask could show you how good it worked. The subsequent bioweapon masquerading as a jab looks like it did what I think you're calling a chemical lobotomy. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. It appears that everybody who received at least one mRNA dose did undergo a form of chemical lobotomy. What that means is the use of biological materials or chemicals, which alters basically brain function or neuronal function itself or psychological function, etc., to make people docile would be the purpose of that, or I guess reduce cognitive capacity. And we have now proven that this is exactly the case with these mRNA injections. We published 2 papers at the McCullough Foundation, and we looked at the vaccine adverse event reporting system, and we found 146 serious brain, spinal cord, and psychiatric adverse events linked to these shots, far exceeding what naturally occurs or normally occurs with the flu vaccinations. And so that's how you define a safety signal. So there was 146 of them, and they span every single thing you could think of: depression, delusion, psychosis, homicidal behavior, schizophrenia. And then you had brain clots, was 3,000 times more likely to get a stroke. I mean, it's absolutely terrible. And then you had all sorts of horrible things, demyelination syndromes in the brain. So the protective sheaths on your neurons is literally withering away, becoming destroyed. And so many other things. Prion disease was like 800 times more likely with the COVID shots than with the flu shots. Or Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease, the human equivalent of mad cow disease. So this is all very real, all documented in the CDC's vaccine surveillance systems. And this is unfortunately what is happening. Cognitive impairment is skyrocketing in America right now. A recent study found that, particularly in young adults. Now, there's many factors behind that, but we suspect that this is one of the main reasons, as well as what seemingly, the world has gone mad since 2020. People are doing very irrational things, and doing, especially, we see all these protests and stuff, sometimes for very stupid purposes. And this appears to be a central component to the wide scale deterioration of common sense.
And that's after 40 years of public school dumbing down and all the drug use that's going on as well. And certainly I can tell you from personal anecdote that I totally saw that. I was just waiting for the evidence, the metrics to come out like you've presented. And I think that makes perfect sense of why. So what's Prion disease exactly?
A prion disease is a form of disease that results or is caused from a misfolded protein, or basically a protein that has lost its normal function. So it becomes basically deformed, but then that defective protein, or what's called misfolded protein, can infect other proteins and make those deformed as well. And so that's basically what a prion disease is. And so what is happening is the mRNA shots make your body produce the spike protein, which in and of itself causes other proteins to misfold. And the mRNA technology itself results in your body producing misfolded proteins. And so you have all sorts of strange, anomalous proteins as a result of these shots. And that's why we're seeing these protein related disorders. We're seeing prion disease, we're seeing amyloidosis, which is similar to prion diseases. We're seeing all sorts of horrible things as a result of these shots. And many of those misfolded proteins reach the central nervous system, so they reach the brain, likely contributing to the psychiatric adverse events.
Somebody's asking, how long might this docility last?
It's impossible to tell in those who were severely affected. And, we really don't know, but we could expect years in those who have already suffered the effects. If you haven't suffered any ill cognitive effects, consider yourself lucky, because the mRNA probably did not reach your central nervous system. But in those who did, there was a study that recently came out by OTA and colleagues from Japan. They found in hemorrhagic stroke patients, they had vaccine mRNA and the spike protein in their brain arteries, 17 months after the last shot. So, in some people, it's very long lasting.
Is that the Japanese group that's doing the prion studies?
No, this is a separate group.
But Japan seems to be resistant, even though the government's gone along with it. The Japanese people seem to be resistant to all of that quite a bit, from what I've seen.
Yes. Well, the Japanese people, Japanese researchers, they're doing some good work, but the government there, not so much. They're still, approving. They recently approved self-amplifying mRNA injections for their citizens.
And isn't it true that the human genome is now devolving, where people, I'm kind of going into delegitimizing evolutionary theory, is because where they've seen modifications of it, none of them have been good. They've all been, this kind of off subject, but I don't know if this is too far off subject for you, but all the modifications that they've seen, the gene mutations, are devolving. None of them are improving.
Well, this fits that perfectly because, we've now documented the first direct evidence. We published a study on this a few months ago of genomic integration of mRNA vaccine genetic material in a stage 4 bladder cancer patient. So we literally found a segment of the DNA plasmid from the manufacturing process. This genetic material was spliced, was merged inside of her chromosome 19. And so, that means her DNA is corrupted, unfortunately. And we don't know. I mean, that probably will pass on to offspring. But again, none of that has been tested or studied. But again, very concerning for sure. And so, we would suspect a lot of people will have devolved or will now have corrupted genetics or corrupted genome, and probably resulting in shortened lifespans and accelerated disease.
Well, disease is certainly accelerating and lifespan is dropping in the United States. I think it's the first world country where that's happening, if I'm correct on that. And I'm sure you're familiar with Nobel laureate Luc Montagnier, who predicted anybody who took the bioweapon would die in a decade. So we're halfway through there. And I was wondering if the numbers bear that out. I remember I remember seeing all the footballers drop dead on the field and all the news guys dropping dead at the desk. Now the turbo cancers, now with everything you're describing. But is there any, does it look, we're kind of halfway there to Luc Montagnier's prediction. Do you have any visibility of that, if that is accurate or not?
I don't think that's going to come to full fruition. Perhaps it would have been if all of the batches were the same. But
yes,
there was
that's right.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. The batches were not the same.
Yes, batches were different. Some were highly lethal, particularly the batches that started with E. The Pfizer batch is starting with E. If everybody got an E batch, probably all would be dead in 10 years. But no, some of the batches were basically duds, and people would experience almost no serious adverse events, probably because the mRNA was degraded or, was left out of the refrigerator too long. And so thankfully, because of that, I don't think they're all going to die, because that would mean 70% of the entire globe would drop dead, in 5 years. Now, we do know that, probably at least over 20 million were killed by these shots globally, which is obviously a very large amount of people. But I don't see any indications that we're going to start to reach 4 or 5 billion people dead. Um, Perhaps that was what was sought after, but it failed.
Well, the how bad was your batch .com site, I guess, followed that, and I guess in conservative areas, the intensity of the mRNA in there was stronger. So it may actually pan out to be true in the areas that were real with the weaponization, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yes, exactly. And but one thing we also have to consider is how these shots are sterilizing or severely impair fertility potential. So while they may not kill everybody off the bat, they will impair the ability to reproduce, which will over time, reduce the population drastically. So, it's kind of a 1-2 hit.
That's very significant because America, Japan, Britain, a lot of these populations are not reproducing enough already to sustain themselves. China, the same thing. It's not that there are too many people; there aren't enough people at all. Yes, that's a great point. Is there also? Did you also say that offspring would be more devolved or as devolved as their parents?
Vaccinated parents who have a child, a lot of the children will be just fine, but many of them will not. And yeah, they probably will have corrupted genetics, corrupted gene expression profiles, it's called, where their body is not expressing the genes it should be expressing for proper protein production. So some of these children will begin to produce these, what we talked about earlier, misfolded proteins, or these prion like infectious proteins. Because there was a case report by Dr. Kevin McCairn recently that documented this very thing in a 3-year-old born to a mother who was injected with Pfizer. They literally found in this child, 3-year-old child, amyloid fibrils in his blood. So we're seeing indications of this. So yeah, some children, unfortunately, their gene expression profiles will be corrupted.
Tragic. So somebody's asking, can shedding cause this docility as well? Well, I guess the question is, can the shedding, which now has been, I believe, proven clearly to be real, then cause docility in the shedded upon, I guess?
Yes, it's possible, particularly if you had sexual intercourse with a vaccinated individual shortly following their vaccination, or if you share a bed with a vaccinated individual, um, again shortly after they were vaccinated, or you're exposed to their bodily secretions, either through drink, sweat, or really anything else there. That's how we think it's transmitted. It could be transmitted through sweat. So if you're playing sports and your whole sports team was recently vaccinated with mRNA injections and you were not, and you were kind of making bodily contact, yeah, it may have shed to you. But we have proof of this now in multiple papers that it is indeed real. It appears that this mRNA goes into what's called exosomes in your body, these kind of circulating messenger molecules. And that is what's released through sweat or released through breath. And so if you exhale, some of these exosomes with mRNA may travel outward to another individual. And so if that does get into your circulation, it will be a very low dose, thankfully, but it may still contribute some negative effects for sure.
Well, the like-minded the sheep who go along with getting the jab are likely to copulate, and so it'll be worse for their children, I would suppose. Can shedding cause prion disease to those close to the vaccinated? Someone asks.
Yeah, shedding may be able to It may be able to induce this protein misfolding um, if you're exposed to a very high dose of it through shedding. But it's a very low likelihood, I would say. I wouldn't be overly concerned about it unless your spouse is vaccinated and you're directly in contact with them every single day. But at this point in time, most people did not get a vaccination recently. And so the shedding potential now in 2026 is much lower than it was in 2021.
I lost you there. You okay?
Yep. Sorry, I just had to turn off a heater.
Can autism be a result of COVID shots?
Autism, it's possible. There was a study by Erdogan and colleagues that looked in mice. They injected pregnant mice with mRNA shots, and the offspring had autism-like behaviors and brain damage. So it happens in the animal models, and I would suspect it probably is happening in humans as well because the mechanisms check out, the messenger RNA getting through the placenta and the pregnant mother, reaching the baby, the developing fetus, getting into its central nervous system and destroying its brain tissue. And so, unfortunately, yeah, I believe it could be happening for sure.
Well, that sounds like someone saying, I know a nurse who didn't get the vax, her husband either, but her baby was born with a strange chromosome and the baby is deaf. But they could, if it was a nurse, though, could have been around, very likely was around the shedding. So that could be an explanation for that, right?
Yeah, that's possible for sure. Now, we have to remember some of these abnormalities, would occur regardless of shedding or not. But yeah, it is possible if she's a nurse, she may have been exposed.
So then let's switch to some other stuff you've been working on. You were talking about the Nipah virus recently as well, I believe.
Yeah, the Nipah virus. I'll give the quick rundown of the situation. So right now, everybody sees it in the media. Terrifying new virus. Detected. All the airports are surveilling passengers and they're locking people in their homes. What we have to remember is this Nipah virus, these outbreaks occur every single year in Bangladesh and India. And so it's not a new thing. It's happened for the past 30 years. And so when we see these media reports, they kind of make it seem like it hasn't. And, it's just kind of happening, as a brand new thing. So that's not true. So I'm not very concerned simply because, there was only, I think, 3 cases, suspected cases are confirmed. And, that's about it. It's probably going to be very self-limited. I would only be concerned if we started to see, thousands and thousands of cases and cross-national spread. And if that's the case, I would suspect gain of function modifications in biolaboratories.
Foreign cleavage stuff.
Yep. I would suspect for sure human modification of otherwise, viruses that would not, widely infect humans. There is a 40 to 60% fatality rate with this Nipah virus. They claim it infects the brain and causes encephalitis. That's why it's so high. But that fatality rate is too high to spread to have a widespread pandemic, and so modifications would be required to make that fatality rate lower and more transmissible. And so, but there are mad scientists working on such activities. Moderna already is making a Nipah virus mRNA injection, right? So it appears they are prepared for some sort of crisis with this, but I do not think that this is the one.
Moderna was clearly DARPA and DOD back in the day. I don't think so anymore. What do you think?
Yeah, they were back in the day for sure. They were a very mysterious company that kind of appeared out of nowhere, when COVID hit, and then all of a sudden everybody just trusted them with their novel mRNA injections. They received large sums of money, obviously, from BARDA. And we know that BARDA had the ADEPT P3 program in like 2012, which was the sole purpose was to basically develop mRNA injections for emerging pathogen threats. And yeah, so they've been around. And yeah, so this whole mRNA technology apparatus does appear to be military driven. And perhaps that's why they're still on the market across the globe.
Yeah, they even went into China a while back, but they've been failing miserably. But without artificial support, without BARDA, DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Program Agency, BARDA is Biological Advanced Research Program Agency, ARPA is Advanced Research Program. That's what we're talking about here for the audience. For the vaxxed, what are the symptoms to look for during the 10-year period? I see many who have had it, and I'm watching closely, somebody asks.
For the vaxxed, I would say 10 years out. I would say there is a 10 to 15 year window of concern. That's based on the FDA's gene therapy guidance. So, we have to keep an open suspicion for those individuals for that period of time. We are seeing delayed adverse events, sometimes delayed serious adverse events of people dying from cardiac arrests, 5 years later, or developing turbo cancers 5 years later, and all sorts of horrible things. But many people will probably be in the clear and have been lucky, and perhaps nothing was integrated into their genome. They're not producing spike protein anymore, and they didn't incur a lot of damage from their initial dose. And so it really just depends. The best way to tell at this point is to check your batch at howbadismybatch.com, and that will kind of tell you your risk profile for the next few years.
Yeah, somebody could put that in the chat there on Rumble. Howbadisyourbatch.com. That'd be good. Why the difference in the, I know it's only 5 years, but Montagnier saying 10 years, and then where's this other 5 years coming from?
It's coming. So this 5 years, or 10 to 15 years, this is the range that was given in a FDA guidance document for gene therapy manufacturers. And basically what they say in this document is you need at least 10 years to know the full safety profile of a gene therapy, but preferably you want 15 years to look for any long-term adverse events. And so that's where that range comes from.
And remind me, what was the utility of getting the mRNA in that? Because in my competitive intelligence consulting work in the field, I've never seen any of it do any good. I've never seen any of it work. It just seems to be a weapon completely.
Yeah, it's completely failed, doesn't work, and maims and kills people. And so, yeah, it appears its only purpose is to function as a weapon against the global citizens.
So do you see, any hope on the horizon for civil suits about this? I know, the Nuremberg stuff was, mock court. But the sin, the crimes, dwarf the original Nuremberg by so much. Do you see anything on the horizon that institutions or governments are going to come clean? Not that, governments have long democided their populations, but it seems to be a global vogue at this point.
Yeah, we're in such a terrible situation right now where something like a Nuremberg 2.0 would be seemingly required to deal with these criminals. But yeah, the only indications of that I have seen, and there are a few, thankfully, there are some efforts. One is in the Netherlands. A Dutch court has ordered Bill Gates, Albert Bourla, and some Dutch health officials to testify in court regarding their deadly mRNA injections that they pushed so hard on global populations, despite and lying, basically lying about safety. And so they are supposed to show up to court. This was filed by 7 vaccine injured plaintiffs, and one of them has since died. And so they're going to also assess what did the COVID injection function as a biological weapon. So that's big. Remains to be seen if Bourla and Gates will show up. We shall see. And then another one is here in the United States, and this one's very big, where Children's Health Defense has filed a federal RICO lawsuit against the American Academy of Pediatrics for running a decades-long racketeering scheme related to the childhood vaccination schedule. AAP, the American Academy of Pediatrics, was essential basically for childhood vaccine recommendations, since the 70s, 80s, 90s. And now it has come out that all of the stuff they claim, such as injecting children with 7 vaccines, 9 vaccines at once, is safe, was completely made up based on no science. And so they're making these false claims while at the same time taking in money from Merck, Pfizer, Moderna, from the vaccine manufacturers themselves. And so it appears that this is a racketeering scheme, and hopefully something big comes out of that.
Yeah, I've seen that. I was so happy to see RICO actually being finally named, but because it's civilian, not governmental, it's got to be civil. Now, you can do RICO civil, but RICO civil is even more difficult than RICO criminal.
But it should. So how do we? What do you think? Like, what could the outcome be? The best possible outcome for a civil one compared to a criminal RICO case?
Well, prove it. If you prove damages and you have a large population, which you do, then of course it would look like. So if you take the precedent from the tobacco stuff that started with the Ohio Attorney General, and then you see that same precedent through civil suits that was used for the opioid stuff, that's where I see that this could go. Where is Children's Health Defense bringing that suit? What court?
Good question. I don't remember. It might be.
Well, anyway,
District of Columbia. I don't know.
Targeting certain sympathetic or friendly courts with that would be the way, because then all the other attorney generals will tend to pick it up, and then you try and bankrupt these giant big pharma, Pfizer, Moderna entities. Paxton AG of Texas sued, Pfizer, but nothing much happy with it, because big pharma, and I work in this field, they expect suits all the time. Big pharma, $3-5 million suits, nothing to them.
So they just get away with it. They pay it off and continue the crimes.
Yeah, but again, we've seen that if we look at the tobacco precedent and the opioid precedent, I think those precedents could be used here. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like that would be the case. But obviously I would like to see, more serious actions taken against some of these enterprises that have literally maimed and harmed America's children for decades, based on complete lies. And I think more serious penalties for some of these individuals, whoever was essential in these decision making processes. They should be totally held accountable. And for the COVID shots, I know it's so far entrenched now. Everybody's implicated, in the production or manufacturing or promotion of these. I don't know how there will be a form of serious accountability, without arresting basically the entire government at this point. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, Trump is still, praising, warp speed as a great military operation, and again, for it to be a military operation, there had to be an enemy threat. Of course, the enemy threat appears to be us. We've met the enemy, and we are us. It's not the China virus. It's the Fort Detrick, DARPA, BARDA, CIA virus. It looks like. So somebody's asking, there's another question here. Is it true blood banks rejecting COVID vax blood and paying money for unvax? No, that's not true. I don't think at all. Is it?
Are blood banks rejecting
COVID vaxxed blood and paying money for unvaxxed blood?
No, they're not. They don't care. They don't care. They'll take as much vax blood as possible and give the vax blood to all the unvaxxed people. They don't care. There are some special organizations though that are specializing now in, if you're unvaccinated, you want unvaccinated blood, they will help you do so.
So I was following some of those. I don't think any of them, I ever saw any of them really get going, and I didn't really trust any of them either. I think the solution more is to purify blood, but of course that becomes a customized and very expensive process.
Right. Well, yeah, if you can afford it, for sure, purifying the blood would be optimal. But sometimes sometimes people will be stuck in an emergency. They need blood quick. They're gonna just have to accept that the blood may be contaminated. If they're losing blood fast, they'll have no choice.
And even if you purified your blood and put it in the bank, there's no guarantee that in an emergency, they'd pull out the right blood anyway. It's quite difficult. But I don't put a lot of faith in those organizations that have been talking about purified blood banks. Do you?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have any direct experience with them, so I don't know how accurate their claims will be. I have no clue.
So what else? I was trying to prepare for this, and I saw you working on a bunch of other stuff. But what else are you working on that we should know about?
Many things, many studies will be coming out imminently. Some are very, very damning. One we expect will be coming out this week regarding very, very prolonged detection of mRNA vaccine components in an injured individual. And then we are working on a paper regarding the MMR vaccine. We have identified, cardiac arrests and many child deaths with the MMR shot that have not been reported on. And, this may impact, our in the U.S. at least, the MMR vaccines policy. They will have to acknowledge this. So, many things coming up. Just stay tuned. Okay,
we will. So where can people follow you? I know on X and where else?
Yep, you can follow me on X at NICHOLSHER, and you can also follow me on thefocalpoints.com. That is our Substack publication. I'm on there with Dr. Peter McCullough and John Leake.
Cool. Well, say hi to Doc McCullough for me. We haven't talked in a while. And thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, there's a great Nick Holster, really very informative, lots of questions there, and he had all the answers as usual. And yes, he is an epidemiologist, despite what the trolls are saying. I've had plenty of people question my credentials as well. So remember, the news is fake, the fix is in, the votes rigged, the polls skewed, the pundits paid off, censors reign. The FBI doesn't stop terrorism, it manages terrorism. CIA doesn't collect intelligence, it's psyops it. News bobbleheads babble bull. Hunter's laptop of child rape, like Hillary's, lapsed. Ashley's dead shower diaries disappeared. Ukraine replaced Afghanistan, and Gaza, Ukraine. Cuckold Congress funds FISA and a new FBI headquarters bigger than the Pentagon. Where it's demonic Dems or rhino rats, the Uniparty always wins. Florida biomurders voters by the billions. The Fed impoverishes via inflation. IRS robs by taxes. The cabal repopulates the electorate with illegals, houses them, funds them, pays them, and then commands their vote. But bread is not manna, and circuses aren't commitment. Slaves submit, warriors serve, and in the bloody, muddy end, the most committed wins.